We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Well, welcome everyone to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hassani, and it is Friday, and if you know what Friday is, it is relationship Q&A. So here's your opportunity to get the question in ASAP. You can chat, you can text, but get it in ASAP so we can have a great conversation today. I'm excited because today we have an amazing cast of members, right? You know the Avengers. I'm sure people are into the sci-fi movies and they watch the Avengers. Well, I have my Avengers with me here today, and so I'm going to introduce them really quickly, and then as we get into the questions and conversations, they're going to share a little bit more about themselves. But I don't know what you're seeing on the screen, but to my immediate right at the top, we have Natalie Clayton, who's a powerful coach who resides in Los Angeles, California, and then beneath her, Lakeisha Hines, who is killing it in these streets, transforming lives and relationships. She is in Tampa, Florida. And then to her left under me is Jeff Witt, who is a powerful, phenomenal men's coach who's been transforming the lives of men for years. And so we're excited to have him on. He's from Jersey. And so what we're going to do today is jump right into it. It's relationship Q&A. Please don't wait till the second segment to do what you always do, and that's post your question. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump right in. I got a couple questions for us. Let's get started. First question from Bill Stevenson. My spouse won't communicate with me. She shuts down every time I bring up an important issue. What do I do? What do we have for you guys?
I'll get us started.
This is what I was talking about, right here. See?
Exactly. So,
come on, let's get it.
One of the things we as men have a problem doing is approaching with tone and tenor in the proper way when we're trying to bring up a serious subject. We often communicate with almost as serious. We're trying to be very, very serious, but it comes across aggressive. And it's stuff that we carry from the business world in our lives at work, where we're trying to get a point across, and we carry that at home. And a friend of mine told me you could take a bed and tie it up and treat it like a boxing bag and practice on that and take those same skills to learn out in the rest of the world. But that's not what a bed is for. When you come home, that's your comfort, that's your rest. We spend time relaxing. We have to relax ourselves when we come off the street and engage in a conversation in a more kind manner than what we would do with our friends or with people at work. And I see that as always a big problem, barrier to communication with our wives.
I think that's a good point as far as timing is concerned. I know a lot of times as women, sometimes we will bring up something and it's not a good time. So that is a good point that you mentioned, maybe checking in with the spouse to see like, hey, I really need to talk to you about something important. Is this a good time? But also for me, I'm always trying to figure out what's the root of something. So what's the cause? What have they tried to communicate in the past and it went left, like it went horribly wrong? It could be a safety issue. Has there been some perceived abuse, like physical, emotional, economical? Sometimes a spouse will shut down if they're not on the same page with spending, and then that can come out in other ways. So there's so many reasons why they could be not communicating.
I think also the issue is important issues. The question is when he sits down to talk about important issues. And my question for him would be, well, how do you talk to her about non-important issues? You know, what is your communication style? How do you guys communicate and relate to each other in an open dialogue? And how can you understand her communication, the way she expresses herself, and maybe use that way for her to communicate with important issues? That's what I look at. What's the important issues and what's making her not communicate because it's an important issue.
I mean, it definitely seems like avoidance too. It definitely seems like it's avoidance. And if that is the case, why are they avoiding? Just like you said, what's happened previously when they try to communicate, but also it could be they don't want to talk because it's uncomfortable. And maybe they're uncomfortable because you've made them uncomfortable. I have so many questions.
Right. Sometimes the question leads to other questions to understand the situation, so you could probably. But I think you all did a great job. We have a question from Linda in the chat. I don't know why I can't. Oh, there we go. I'm sorry, guys. It says, "Good morning from Chicago. Is it worth staying if you don't have full disclosure, but he wants to work it out? And then how?" I think that's a very good question. We can all kind of speak into this. What we have found, many people are trapped in what we call the discovery phase for quite some time. So when an affair first comes out, there's usually a tendency to lie, to minimize, to downplay, to omit truth, to give a false impression, to deceive, to engage in the trickle truth, and they're holding on to that truth for dear life, and they never want to let it go. And oftentimes there's a fear that if I tell you, there may be consequences. I may lose the marriage, I may hurt you. And so they're tight-lipped. And so it is hard for a spouse to heal and move forward if they're not going to be transparent. Now, the question is, is it worth staying? Well, I will say this. There is a motivation for people to do what it is that they do. I know that women, generally speaking, for you can correct me if I'm wrong, generally women are motivated by of a future gain, the possibility of one day things will get better. And so they'll hold on in horrible situations for hopes of better things. Men, on the other hand, are motivated by the fear of loss. So when men feel like they may actually lose their wife, their marriage, their family, they will do whatever it takes to get it. And because those ultimately don't work, to be able to engage in an ongoing conversation where you bring a third party in to kind of unpack those issues. What do you guys say?
I mean, it's definitely on a individual case by case basis, because what else is going on? Do they seem remorseful? I mean, again, more questions, so many questions.
Yeah, and I think also. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I think it depends on the history of the relationship. That's a huge factor to me. You have to start with the history and the root cause of the relationship and why there is no disclosure in the relationship dynamics. I'm sorry, Lakeisha, go ahead.
Disclosure is extremely important though, because saying that he wants to work it out, what does that look like?
Right.
Working it out for you may look one way, but it may look completely different for them. So you're not giving me an opportunity to make an educated decision if you haven't given me all of the information. So I don't know if I want to stay or not. It just depends on what all you're not telling me.
Right. And, relationships are built on trust, particularly for a woman. And so if that trust is broken, I mean, it's on the man's side as well, but if it's broken on the woman's side, it's very hard to earn trust of a person if they're not going to be full disclosure in a relationship.
And that's why it's such a critically important thing to do, to constantly engage in that. Let's go to another question. I want you guys to weigh in on this. Jessica Blake says, "My spouse won't stop listening to this high value man conversation online, and it's poisoning our relationship. He treats me horribly. I'm losing my wits. Any advice?" Now, this is what we've been talking about for the last few days, and we want to take our time and go deeper into this. So, Jeff, I see you chomping at the bits. Give it to us.
This gets at me because, first of all, is your husband a high value man himself? Has he achieved that first before he's implementing all these standards? That's the question you need to ask yourself. And the second thing is, in my groups, the men I deal with we have a set of rules, a code that we live by, but it's really just a bunch of questions. And the first one is, who do we listen to? And it's people who have achieved what we want and have been where we've come from. Now, the person in question, and I won't say his name, we know who this is.
Kevin Samuels?
Oh, yeah, Kevin Samuels. If you're going to let the cat out the bag, we'll let the cat out the bag. Has been divorced twice. His divorce papers read like a novel, and it's all public exposed. And this is a fashion consultant, people. Look at his LinkedIn. He is a fashion consultant, not a relationship expert. He's definitely proven not to be a relationship expert in his own. And so one of the things I would encourage him to do is get involved in a men's group where there are high value men, where there are those 1%ers and 2%ers, like the guys that I deal with on a regular basis. And, if he gets involved with high value men, he'll see how they really conduct themselves. Kevin Samuels is mostly an observer sitting on the sidelines. He's not the real deal.
I like
then the
that.
question is, I want you all to jump in on this. He defines high value solely, strictly by money, right? It's about your financial status. And that's also a part of the problem, because there's so many other pieces to the equation that are not being discussed. Lakeisha, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, this leads to a completely unhealthy type of relationship. And listen, I am all about kings and queens. I feel like, our specifically our Black men, you're kings. And as women, we're queens. So I'm here for that. Like, I do believe there's value to both of us, but it becomes a problem when you are mistreating the person who you say that you love. Like that, to me, that makes you nothing less than like you are totally invaluable for me if you are treating the person again that you are laying down with every single night. You're mistreating them, you're belittling them. This is going to lead to, again, a horribly unhealthy relationship.
He needs to get involved with high value men, real high value men in his life. You're going to see
what that means, though.
That's what I was. We can do this. We all have 4 securities, right? Spiritual, emotional, physical, and financial. And a high value man, in my book, is someone who can rate themselves 8 or above in each of those categories. So that their strong sense of being and knowing who they are, the spiritual, their connection to God, the universe, whatever they believe in, but it's the sense of self-identity, that you know who you are in your place in this world. Emotionally strong means that they can control themselves emotionally. This will help you in any situation, that they have strong EQ, emotional intelligence, basically, where they can be aggressive when they need to be, but that's almost something they turn on, and that they can turn that off as well when they need to be soft. Okay. And be vulnerable as well when that's safe and required. And then the physical, that means a high value man is working on himself, is physically healthy as best as he can be to the best of his ability. He watches what he does exercise wise, eating wise, and also has a good, strong sense of protection. He can defend home and family. And then the financial is the last quadrant. And that's what you'll find is while that's very important, there's a lot of unstable men in other categories who've figured out money, but they haven't figured out everything else. So their life and their mind is in chaos. But if you figure out those first 3 first, the high value man is going to be able to create an environment that aligns with their goals and their dreams in a structured way over time and in an appropriate manner.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Because I think what you said before, what is your definition of a high valued man? And that was so clean cut. And then she needs to decide what is her definition, and they need to be on the same page. They need to be in agreement. A high valued woman and then a high valued man. And this is how we're going to move forward, in our marriage and relationship. So I thought that was excellent. That was an excellent example. And people are caught up in the money part, and so awesome. I agree with that 100%.
Phenomenal breakdown. Listen, guys, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. We will be right back. I hope you're enjoying this conversation, everyone. But we want you to continue to post your questions. We have a few to get to. We'll be right back. Stay right there. Well, welcome back, everyone. You're watching the Couples Academy show. If you're just tuning in, we've been having a phenomenal conversation with our Avenger team here. We've got Lakeisha Hines, Natalie Clayton, and they are just half of the entire Couples Academy team, practitioners who specialize in a variety of different things. If you're in need of help, you want to restore your marriage, these practitioners are there for you. If you're looking for individual work as a woman or as a man, if you're dealing with depression, anxiety, whatever your situation is, we now are equipped. We've been putting the call out for a couple months, and these individuals have answered the call and are brilliant in their own right. And so we're really blessed to have them as a part of the team, and we want to incorporate them in our relationship Q&A as we move forward on Fridays. I want to go back to what you just broke down, Jeff. That was a very comprehensive. I mean, that was actually a 4-part series. Like each one of those could be its own show.
Yeah.
Just do a recap of those 4 really quickly, and I want us to engage in a conversation about that as we continue to answer a couple more questions that have come in.
So we were talking about what this whole high value man thing is. And I never coined it as that, but I knew a complete life is complete, whether it's for men or for women, is built around 4 basic quadrants that we exist in: our sense of self, our spirit, our emotions, who we know ourselves to be in connection to God and the rest of the world. And then that's our spiritual. And the second quadrant is emotional. That emotional quadrant is where we are able to balance out and manage our emotions with intention using the intellect, which is just making decisions. But when we allow the intellect to take place, when we develop that, we can make decisions even about our emotions, what emotions we express, and how to conduct and operate ourselves in an emotional way. So we can be calm when we need to be calm. We can be aggressive when it's warranted and not when it's not. And that we can be stable in any situation and get the best out of it, not to let our emotions run wild. And the third quadrant is physical. That obviously deals with fitness and fuel, or how we do our exercise and take care of our bodies. But it also has to do with our sense of protection, the ability to draw the line and be protective force in your family, and stand your ground when appropriate and in the appropriate manner, as well as financial, which is just our ability to control our environment. Okay, that's what finance and money is for. It's just to be able to create a safe environment that aligns with our goals, our dreams, and our ambitions for ourselves, as well as our marriages and our families. Okay, and so that's the 4 quadrants. Central to that is knowledge and practice in each of those quadrants. So whether it's prayer, devotion, or meditation, in the spiritual, when you get into the emotional, it's literally the getting in and understanding how emotions work, understanding that typically we live our lives through our 5 senses: what we taste, what we touch, what we hear, what we smell, what we see. And those things are coming in from the outside and influencing our thoughts. Those thoughts affect our emotions, and our emotions affect our sense of identity if they're given enough time to do that work on us. And
This is just, wait a minute. This is just too comprehensive. I wanted an overall synopsis, and you're going like, but there's so much to this. This requires literally a show on that, and we're gonna actually have to do that. Listen, based upon what you said, now Lakeisha, I want to bring you into this conversation. He's talking about a high value man, right? So before you can be a good husband, you have to be a good man, right? So you work with couples, you work with the wife and the husband.
Right.
There are a lot of challenges that men have in terms of, or I should say husbands have, in terms of how they show up in the marriage, and the root of it could be who they are as men. What are some of the challenges that you are seeing that husbands bring into the relationship that self-sabotage themselves and have a negative impact on the marriage?
Okay, so there's a lot, but the 2 that I'll focus on are history, which Natalie brought up earlier, and history like family history. How were they raised? Did they have a good example of what a man first is supposed to be, and secondly, what a husband is supposed to be? Secondly, there's sometimes cultural issues that get in the way of them showing up in a healthy way in a relationship. Some cultures, it's okay for them to have multiple wives. And if they don't discuss that prior to getting married, like he's automatically thinking that you understand that and this is cool with you, and they haven't talked about it. And then there's an extramarital affair, and then he's like, "What's the big deal?" And she's like, "Are you kidding me?" So sometimes it's cultural, and then, like I said, a lot of times it's that upbringing. They haven't had a model of what a man is supposed to look like, or what a husband is supposed to look like. And then, one more thing. So because I have boys and I'm raising 3 boys right now to become men, that whole it's not okay for you to cry. If they fall down, like not brushing off the knee when they fall, it's like get up and go on. Like it's not okay for you to be sensitive. A lot of men grow up feeling like it's weak if they express their emotions, or if they show any type of sadness, or if they cry or whatever, which is not true. Women are looking for that. Do we want you to cry all the time? No, but we definitely want you to show some level of sensitivity and let me know that, hello, you are not a robot.
Yeah.
I think the key also
Listen,
too.
Tania, wait, I want to go to Tania's question, and I want to bring Natalie in on this. Tania says, morning from Seattle, 5-year relationship, 4 years old, not 4 years old, okay, not married. How do we move forward if he isn't spiritually driven as I am? I've prayed, encouraged, etc. Is that not equally yoked? Natalie, what do you have to say about that?
Wow. Well, that's a pretty ambiguous question. It goes back to looking at yourself. It goes back to what Jeff mentioned in the 5. I'm gonna call them 5 pillars of knowing thyself, your spiritual wholeness, being whole spiritually, knowing who you are emotionally and physically. I think that's something that they need to look into to see if they are equally yoked, because people can change, people can transform. There has to be a willingness. Are they able to grow spiritually? Are they able to grow in identifying who they are? So this is a prime example of a couple who needs to come in and have a third party mentor to come in and say, hey, what are the issues? What are you lacking in your spiritual side? Where is a gap that's preventing you to grow spiritually or emotionally? So that there's not a one shop question for that, but I think it's an opportunity for you to seek help, outside help, to look within yourselves and each other and see if you are spiritually yoked.
And to that point, great observation, right? It is a time for you to seek help, and that's exactly why we're here. And so,
Right.
if you are in need and you need someone to kind of guide you through a process, listen, pick up the phone, reach out to us, go to the website, couplesacademy.org, set up a discovery call so that you can meet with one of our practitioners who can guide you through a phenomenal process. We have another question from Lorraine. It says, what strategies do you recommend for staying present? How do I get my thoughts present? I'm constantly thinking about my husband's affair he had for years. He's doing everything right to save the marriage. Who wants to chime in on that?
I think this is a question of meditation. Now, that this is a little bit sketchy because it depends on your belief and your faith and things like that. Some people have questions about meditation, but you can actually do meditation in a very Christian way if that's your religion. If not, then I'll just give you an idea. Hassani, you did this exercise with me when we were in California. We were sitting on the beach and we were looking at the ocean. And we asked God a question and we waited for each wave to bring in an answer. And in the process, your mind gets full of thoughts, negative thoughts. And the whole idea is to acknowledge the thought that comes in and release it. And unless it has something to do with the question. And so what this does is it creates a mindfulness where we don't allow our thoughts to override our emotion and our well-being. We allow those thoughts to come in. We acknowledge, okay, yes, that bill that I got to pay. Okay, I know it. Okay, let that go. The next one, oh, my husband is really getting on my nerves. Oh, let that go. And then when we get an answer about the question through practice, daily practice in this kind of thing, not more than 10 minutes, you'll find that you'll become more free from being burdened by just thoughts, and that you'll have a more quality and purpose-driven life.
Oh, let me get this one. So Man,
Yeah.
listen,
Powerful,
I
powerful
call
point.
these porno pop-ups.
Yeah.
When you start having these flashbacks about like different things that happen in the affair, especially if you visibly saw some things like text messages or pictures or videos or whatever, you may be having these porno pop-ups. So when that happens, you literally, along the same lines that Jeff is saying, but the Bible tells us we are to cast down our thoughts, right? So you have to capture and then you have to cast. There are sometimes that things come up in your mind and you do need to address it, right? But for me, you go before God in prayer about that particular thing and you give yourself 24 hours. One of the things that I think we do a lot of times is like we immediately react and we have these emotions and feelings and thoughts and then we just spew it out. But sometimes we need to take a minute, sleep on it, and then that next day, if you get up and it's still like tugging at you, then maybe that is something that you need to address with your spouse. But give yourself 24 hours, and then again, if it's something you need to talk about. But a lot of times it's really just we've already addressed it, we've already talked about it, and now it's just time for you to do your individual work. And that means again casting down those thoughts and replacing them with something positive.
Absolutely. I think our thoughts and our belief create our environment. So
Excellent, excellent point. Listen, I
I
want to
yeah. Go ahead. That's fine.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry, sis. I cut you
Okay.
off. Go ahead.
No, I thought you were saying. All right. Yeah. So our thoughts and our belief creates our external situation and circumstances. And my question to her would be: have you completely forgiven your husband within your heart? You know, because what's in your heart is what comes out of your mouth. It controls your thoughts. It controls your emotions. You know, everything. So again, the steps that you all mentioned before, Jeff and Lakeisha, are excellent. But two is you know, forgiving. You know, um, um, you know, they say you can forgive but not forget. But in this situation where if I can go back to the question, her husband is doing all the right things. Are you going to keep this man hostage? Are you going to keep your husband hostage? Are you going to keep him in prison because you're still suffering from that grief? You know, and how do you let go of that grief? How do you just forgive the whole totality of the situation and circumstances within yourself and your spouse so that you guys can move forward and have a healthy, successful relationship and marriage?
I think that's a great point. You know, at the end of the day, uh, if you really understand the concept of this, the past no longer exists,
Yeah.
right? No longer exists. The
Yeah.
future, you never truly experience it, right? The moment you step into tomorrow, it becomes today. So all
Yeah.
you have is
Yeah.
right now.
Right
And
now.
so this mind that we have, it's a record of the past and a roadmap into the future. And we're constantly time traveling in our minds. So every time you think about a thought from the past, you're living in that thought, and that creates the pain. When you begin to anticipate your future, you either anticipate a positive future outcome or a negative future outcome. So you're
Right.
training your body to experience something that hasn't even happened yet in your mind. And so if you're constantly bouncing back and forth from past to future, you're robbing yourself of your present moment. And that is the key to your healing, to get out of this mind. You know, we've heard that expression, you are out of your mind. Well, that's what it should be,
Yeah.
out of your mind, because you've become a slave to your mind instead of becoming the master of it. And so if you truly want to heal and if you want to get your thoughts together, get out
Right.
of them and be present. So it's the difference between paying intention into a conversation and paying full attention. There's a
Yeah.
difference.
Right.
If I'm
Yeah.
paying full attention, my thoughts are not going to influence intention. And this is a phenomenal conversation. I didn't even take the time to just welcome everybody. Excited about who we have here, but I just want to quickly go. We're winding up, but to O'Neill, to Fedalina, to Vashan, to Wendy Kelly in the building, Kimberly Cooper, good to see you. Rick Benet, Kat, Miss Jules, Torre, Linda, LaShawn, Jaguar. You know who you are. We love you all. We appreciate you all for tuning in. I hope that you got something out of today. I'm excited about next Friday. Can next Friday come here right now, because this lineup has been spectacular. That was you to have an amazing weekend. And I think this theme of how to become high value from a different perspective on next week. So make sure you stay tuned. Have a great weekend. We will see you on Monday. Say goodbye to everybody. Love you guys. See you soon. Take care.
Bye.